One is seeing us change and sometimes even save the lives of our students. We change how they see themselves. They see themselves as powerful as they actually were because their story's been changed, because what they see in the mirror is different.
Hello and welcome to the Beautiful Work Podcast. I am your host, Dan Krikorian. Each episode we feature a special guest from all walks of life and ask them to explore the ins and outs, ups and downs, the trials and the triumphs of their chosen fields. Writers, musicians, coaches, business owners, and everything in between, we peel back the curtain to hear their stories, to walk their paths, to find out how they breathe life into their beautiful work. Welcome back, or hello for the first time. Thanks for tuning in. Man, we have a fantastic show today with Todd Vande Hei. Todd is an impressive person in many facets, and we will get to that in just a second. But man, I was so excited when I got the chance to go interview him and share his story. Before we do, a couple of quick housekeeping items. One, for those of you just joining, besides this podcast, I'm also a musician, and I just had my 5th record come out about a month and a half ago. It's called Grandeur, and it is available everywhere that you can stream or buy albums, and it's doing great right now. Reviews are starting to come in from all over the place, and we've been very pleasantly, I wouldn't say surprised, because we're hoping that they'd be pleasant reviews, but they've been very kind so far, and so we hope to keep sharing the album, and we'll have a bunch of shows coming up in the spring and summer. But you can head to dankrikorian.com, dankrikorian.com, or beautifulworkpodcast.com, and it has all of my past records and places to hear it. We do have a couple of shows coming up. We've got one on March 31st. We'll be playing as a trio at Pacific City in Huntington Beach, California, from 12 noon to 2 o'clock in the afternoon. They have kind of an outdoor amphitheater there, and so we'll be kicking off the spring with a nice little outdoor concert. Hopefully the rain stays away for that. We'll also be back on April 14th at the same spot at Pacific City in Huntington Beach. As far as the podcast, thank you guys so much for those that have been liking or rating it on iTunes over the past week or so. We've seen a good jump in those, and that obviously helps the podcast. And when people are searching and trying to find something new, those nice ratings are much appreciated. So thank you for that. If you'd like to join our newsletter, last thing, you can do that on dankrikorian.com or beautifulworkpodcast.com. Takes you to the same place, and sign up for the newsletter, where once or twice a month, keep you updated on some of the happenings. All right, that is it for this week. Once again, excited to share Todd's story and all that he's done and where he's going, and I know you're going to really enjoy this episode. So without further ado, let's get to the show. Todd Vande Hei's short bio on his website reads, quote, "I'm just a middle-aged dude living in California from the Midwest via New Jersey in a never-ending scientific experiment to redefine what's possible with my body. Don't let this unassuming description mislead you. Todd is anything but your ho-hum, run-of-the-mill 50-year-old. Over 8 years ago, Todd left a job in consulting and as the president of Fabrica to start Stark Fitness, a high-end fitness company that offered training, nutrition, chiropractic, IV therapy, and acupuncture services, all under one roof in Irvine, California. At the same time as starting Stark, Todd also began transforming himself physically, embarking on a journey that has led him down a road of self-discovery about both his physical and mental limits, and along the way, discovering a healthier and happier lifestyle through fitness and nutrition. His company, Stark Fitness, has continued to gain popularity in Orange County and recently opened its second location in Newport Beach, California, while its home location in Irvine continues to thrive. Todd is here today to discuss transforming your habits, building a business from the ground up, and his passion for kite surfing. Welcome to the Beautiful Work Podcast. Todd, thanks so much for joining me this morning.
It's a pleasure to be here.
It's a pleasure to be on this wonderfully comfortable
love sack.
Love sack.
Called a love sack.
This is
not just an ordinary beanbag.
This is the first time that I have done an interview on a love sack. Hopefully not the last.
Hopefully not. Yeah.
Well, thanks so much for joining, and we're going to get into a lot of what you do with Stark and yourself personally, and personal fitness and nutrition. But outside all that, is there something else that you love to do, a hobby or an interest that maybe a lot of people don't know about outside of this?
Yeah. There are two things. One I've been doing for, I think it's maybe been a dozen years now, which is kite surfing. It's there's no business connection, no purpose behind it, just fun. I've tried to get my family into it. My kids are like, "No, thanks, Dad. That's too scary," or "I don't want to hang out with you anymore," because they're teenagers now. So it's something I just do on my own. Yeah, and I just absolutely love it. It makes me feel like a little boy.
And where do you go out and do this?
My favorite spot is north of the pier in Huntington Beach.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not very crowded, and there's some pretty solid surf from time to time, and the wind conditions can be just enough to get you out there. So it's pretty cool.
Kite surfing. Yeah. That sounds fun.
Yes, it is.
So we're interviewing right now at about 9:00 in the morning. What have you been up for 2 hours, 3 hours working already, or what's a typical kind of day or morning look like for you?
Good question. Ideally, I wake up without an alarm.
Okay.
And so I try to sleep as long as I can, because sleep is a huge part of my health and recovery. I typically go to bed, which is really where the whole story starts, at about 9:00. I read, I fall asleep, wake up naturally, hopefully. This morning I woke up at 6, so got about a little over 8 hours of sleep. My sleep quality, though, is, and I have actually have a genetic snip for this. I have a very difficult time getting into deep sleep.
Okay.
And it shows up in all of my stats. And so right now we're actually tinkering with how to find ways to use either supplements, lifestyle changes, food to improve the deep sleep part of my total sleep. I don't know how familiar with sleep architecture you are, but
maybe minimally. So maybe you can fill me in.
So there are essentially 3 general categories of sleep. One is light sleep. One is deep sleep, and one is REM sleep. Most people are familiar with REM sleep.
Yeah.
Maybe not familiar with what it does, but when you're in REM sleep, you're essentially cataloging your what you did throughout the course of the day and sticking some of it into long-term memory, leaving some in short-term memory. It's kind of weird. I mean, your eyes are moving back and forth. Your heart rate gets pretty high. It can get up to like 110, 120 beats per minute, which is almost like having a light workout. And your arms kind of like stiffen up, and your body temperature goes up as you're cataloging stuff. And that's usually a couple hours a night. I have no problem with that. But deep sleep is where you get the physiological recovery, like recover from training, recover from stress. It's if you have a lot of high quality deep sleep, you wake up refreshed. Kids tend to get a lot of it. Older people, old people, tend to get very little of it, which ramps up the aging process. So attempting to tinker with how to improve my deep sleep is a big part of my longevity.
And what have you found so far in tinkering that might help?
Well, having good quality sleep hygiene helps a lot. And sleep hygiene is, and we're kind of going off on a...
It's okay.
It's interesting stuff to me.
Yeah.
And things that a lot of people aren't aware of. But sleep hygiene is this concept of preparing for your sleep, just like you would with ordinary oral hygiene. There are steps that you go through to manage your teeth health, basically. Well, there's steps that you can take to manage the quality of your sleep as well. One would be making sure your room is completely dark. Another one is making sure that your temperature in your room is 65 or less. Another one is to make sure it's perfectly quiet. And if you can kind of hack these things, if you, let's say, live in Manhattan and you've got ambulances and stuff flying by your condo or your apartment building at 2:00 in the morning and basically would wake you up. You have to use white noise devices. So managing your sound quality is really important when you sleep as well. Making sure that you don't look at any devices, TVs, iPads, iPhones, laptops, whatever, within a couple hours before you go to sleep. Because those are all stimulants for your brain. Meditating during the day sometimes. Sometimes I don't get to it until the evening, but I try to do it during the day. That helps tee up good quality sleep for that night. So I do all of those things. Yeah.
So my wife and I falling asleep to episodes of How I Met Your Mother is probably not helping
not at all.
Our deep sleep.
Not at all.
Okay. So we'll have to look into change. I'll have to run it by her.
Yeah. Not uncommon either, but it's a big problem. Yeah.
Sure. You hit on meditation and you do that throughout the day. When did you start in with that, and how long have you done it?
I started meditating about 4 years ago.
Okay.
I have like 15,000 hours of meditation under my belt since then. I do it almost every single day, 20 minutes a day.
Okay.
Yeah.
Morning, you said sometime during the day, or is it?
Yeah, usually I do it right after lunch. I frankly probably eat too quickly.
Okay.
And then I head into my office and I meditate. It's the slowest energy time of the day for me. But if I meditate, I feel great right afterwards, and I continue on.
Do you use an app for that?
Yeah, I do. And the apps, as far as I'm concerned, is sort of like meditation with training wheels.
Okay.
And I kind of need that, and I've got lots of stuff bouncing around in my head.
Sure.
And it's very difficult for me to turn it off. So I need some kind of guidance through the meditation process. At least I think I do. Maybe I don't need it any longer. But I also like the fact that I use Headspace, by the way.
Headspace, okay.
Well, it's my favorite, but it's also the only one I've ever tried. There's a great one called Calm that some friends of mine use. They think it's awesome. But the other advantage of the app is that it logs your meditation. It dumps into your Health Kit, which is the app in your Apple phone or your iPhone that tracks a whole bunch of different metrics. And so the reason it's important to track, I think, is because as the old business guru Peter Drucker once said, what gets measured gets managed.
Sure.
And if you're not measuring something, you probably have a skewed perception of how well you're doing it, or how frequently, or whatever it is that you're trying to do. And so what I've found in measuring things in general, particularly when it comes to me, I think I'm working out, 6 times a week, but I'm really averaging like 3. I think I'm meditating every single day, but I'm really doing like 5 or 6 days a week. And those discounted statistics lead to a lack of awareness and a lack of performance.
Okay.
So that's why I like the app.
Well, good. I want to kind of go back now and talk about the businesses that you've built, Stark, over the years, and maybe I'll let you explain the evolution or the start of it, so I don't fumble around. But just for our listeners, kind of where it started and where it is now.
Okay, I'll give you the quick backstory before Stark,
sure,
and leading up into Stark, because I think Stark is probably the more interesting. Well, depending on who I'm talking to, I guess Stark is the more interesting part of the story. But I was running a public manufacturing company called Fabrica. It's owned by a parent company out of the South called the Dixie Group, and I had a conflict with the board of directors in terms of strategic direction, and they fired me. I retired, was in my mid-30s, had a significant real estate portfolio, and by 2009, it was totally worthless. So essentially lost everything.
Mm-hmm.
Had $60,000 left, and didn't have a job, and was looking for a job. It was a total freaking disaster. My wife went back to work for the first time in, I think, 12 years or so. And it was obviously a very rough time. And my ex-business partner was I'm really simplifying things. He was a personal trainer of mine in earlier years. And he reached out to me and told me he was he was struggling with his business and was thinking about shutting it down, and heard that I was looking for something. So I jokingly said, I'll clear my schedule, and went and met with him. And he was really just self-employed. He had a lease, but he's self-employed, and the people that helped him carry the lease were other independent personal trainers. And so he's renting space to them, offsetting his overhead, and in hopes of building or hiring additional trainers to work for him and building his practice.
Okay.
It didn't work because everybody would show up wanting to train with him, and he didn't know how to deal with that, and was trying to do it all, and was like I said, on the brink of a nervous breakdown, basically. And so was I, but I needed to be needed, and he needed me, and so it was like the opposite ends of a magnet. And I'm like, oh, this feels good. I don't think anything was going through my head at the time. I think it was all like, just this feels good. I like this. Because I was in an emotional state that was not, let's just say, full of confidence. So I told him we would figure out where all the money was going, and I'd help him out to the extent that I could. But when I got a job, I'd likely have to move to the East Coast, somewhere where there was actually business happening, because in Orange County, in the state of California at that particular time, I mean, there wasn't any traffic on the 405.
Uh-huh.
It was crazy.
Sure.
A quarter of the people were sitting at home, creating LinkedIn profiles. Calling themselves consultants. It was a total, it was a total disaster. Real estate consultant, business consultant, life coach. I mean, these were all the things that all of a sudden everybody was those things, because they didn't have any real work to do. So after about a month of that, and figuring out how the cash flowed and what was actually going on in the business, which was frankly disastrous, I told him, well, this seems like a great business. I think I can help you turn this into something. Let's structure a partnership deal. And after a few months of that, I'm like, well, we have to shut everything down, because your brand isn't right, the location's not right, the demographics you're focusing in on aren't right. And it was primarily young athletes. That was his passion.
Okay.
And I was going through the process, and I started transforming. And I'm like, wow, all these chronic issues that I've had in the past, headaches, neck pain, shoulder pain, low back pain, extreme levels of fatigue that I thought were normal, migraines periodically, they all started going away, sort of fading off into the distance. And so I told him, we need to focus on people like me, not the young athlete, the 15-year-old athlete that is here just for the training. You're doing so much more, and they just don't have any appreciation for it. And the pro athlete, they're grossly unsophisticated and didn't really look around the facility and are like, well, this isn't very nice compared to the big giant 60,000 square foot facility in Arizona that they're otherwise looking at. So we just couldn't compete. We had a sophisticated service, but we didn't have the image to go with it. And so I'm like, that matters less to people like me, I think. So we're going to target, because we have no money, we're going to target people like me. So I took 42,000 of the last 60, borrowed 35 grand from a couple of buddies, And we started Stark on January 1st of 2011, like that.
Wow.
It was a scary time.
Wow.
It was, and I think if I had known more about the business, and I knew nothing about it really, I was just learning on the fly. I wouldn't have. I mean, if I were psychologically sound and I knew more about the business, I would never have done this, because it's a low barriers to entry business, tremendous amount of noise.
Sure.
Like everybody's a personal trainer. There's a million 25-year-olds, millions maybe, posting selfies, claiming expertise, doing glute exercises to get that booty that you've always wanted. Things like that. I know you want a booty like that.
I do.
Yeah. It's clear. And so there's so much competition, and the consumer is like, well, who the heck is right? I'll just believe this sexy 26-year-old female who's doing glute exercises with bands on the beach in Santa Monica. That seems like a good idea.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the industry that we're in. So because of all those reasons, it wasn't a good idea. Let's just put it that way. But again, it was the circumstances. I had to succeed. It was done on the fly. I wasn't psychologically all there, frankly. Like sort of gradually, climbed out of my shell, or maybe more like a phoenix rising out of the ashes. That's probably too dramatic. Something in between.
Okay.
And went on the road to simply facing problems that we had as a business primarily focused on personal training, and just coming up with solutions to those problems, and then finding ways to share that information. And that's it. Right. And so what I think sets us apart as a team is that we never stop searching for better solutions to the problems that we face in terms of what we're doing with our clientele, which, by the way, we call students.
Okay, perfect.
Just in case that comes up and you're like, what is that?
It makes sense, though.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so 2011, you opened this Irvine location, and now just a few months ago, or less than a year ago, right? You opened a second location.
January 7th.
Okay, so
this year.
Yeah.
So 2 months ago, two and a half months ago. Yeah.
And down in Newport Beach.
Correct. Yep.
Where do you sort of see this continuing to grow organically? I mean, do you have plans for Orange County more and more? Where do you see the business?
Yeah, so the third location will be somewhere in Orange County, hopefully on the other end of Newport Beach. So the current one is for those of you not local, it's basically one of the wealthiest parts of the wealthiest part of Orange County. I mean, it's like the ultimate location for a business that caters to a high-end demographic. And so for those local, we're right in the outskirts of Fashion Island. We're on PCH, Pacific Coast Highway. Sounds so sexy to people from the Midwest, which is where I'm from originally. Pacific Coast Highway, yes, you can see the ocean.
That's right.
And Newport Center Drive. That's where we are, right in the corner. So the other location will likely be 5 or 6 miles north of there, right up PCH, but on the other end of Newport Beach, because we only need about 200 students to really have just an absolutely thriving single location.
Okay.
And the purpose of all this is we're experimenting. I don't even think Orange County is the ideal market for us.
Really?
No, I mean, and that may sound bizarre for people that are outside of the state of California, but we're truly exceptional at what we do. Business people appreciate what we provide, which is the gross majority of our students here in Orange County. Business people really appreciate what we do because by optimizing their health, which is not why they usually come because they want to be more fit, lose weight, or sometimes put muscle on, but that's generally not the idea. Just be more fit. But what we do to get them to be more fit is actually slip in as a kind of a secret way, better health. we identify all these health problems that are preventing them from being fit, and they're looking downstream. They're like, "Well, I want to lose this belly," and we're like, "Whoa, you have blood sugar issues, you have hormone issues, you have your left knee doesn't work, your right shoulder's screwed up, exercise is moving, you eat like crap, you dine you drink a bottle of wine every night." I mean, all these problems are really the issues to losing the belly, and they just think they need to work out. So,
and what is unique about what you guys do is you have a lot of other people on staff besides just trainers that take care of this.
In a nutshell, when you go to a commercial gym, any of the large commercial gyms, you can. I don't want to bring up names, but they'll have a personal training staff, and the personal trainer will sell you a package of sessions. He or she will write your training program, and sometimes they'll coach you on nutrition, depending on how advanced they are, and that's pretty much the size of it. But they don't really have the ability or the license to understand what's going on health-wise in evaluating your orthopedic health. And those are two huge parts of being very healthy and very fit. So at Stark, you don't hire the trainer like you would at a commercial gym. You get a team of people. The primary relationship is the trainer.
Okay.
The trainer, we call them coaches here. The coach is literally that. Like you get coached through a training session, but also coached in all other parts of your life that are problematic, like a text at night, hey, say no to that bottle of wine, or make sure you stop watching TV right now. I know you're going to bed in 2 hours, like you and your wife.
Yeah,
turn that show off.
I need that.
Come on, bro. Make it happen. That's what that's in a nutshell what makes Stark so unique. So a lot of operational problems associated with that.
Okay.
In that, it's easier so we have doctors and chiropractors, nutritionists and personal trainers, and we have people that actually analyze how you move and write programs. Their specialization. It's a Henry Ford thing. Like I didn't make this stuff up. I'm from manufacturing. That seems like pretty basic. That instead of having one person like my ex-business partner Brad trying to do the entire job, well, why would you do that? Well, you should carve it up into several pieces so that we can hire for the individual positions, develop more easily, scale more easily, and theoretically provide a higher quality product because you get specialists instead of a generalist like the personal trainer at the commercial gym, who is generally really good at sales.
Right.
And I know from experience, salespeople are great at selling, at building relationships and trust. Maybe not so good at delivering stuff and being detail oriented. And I wanted coaches that would be detail oriented. They don't sell anything. I wanted them to be detail oriented and focused on achieving the outcome rather than on selling the student.
So the other thing that I know you guys do really well outside of the actual personal training and the coaching is your content that you're constantly releasing through your podcasts, through what you guys write online, Instagram accounts. As a business, how much of that do you guys spend as figuring out, because that really helps grow obviously certain parts of your business, and I know you guys really do a good job of that. And so when did that start to come into play about pushing some of those things?
That's really an interesting question. So since the beginning, we've tinkered with it.
Okay.
Posting a picture of me kite surfing on my Instagram account to my 400 followers, and the periodic blog that we would write and post it on Facebook, and adjust the link in the profile on Instagram and post it on LinkedIn or wherever we can. It really didn't amount to anything. But then Amir, who's our director of operations, and I flew out to New York to meet with a gym owner named Don Saladino in Manhattan, and he has a location in Soho, which is, I think it's one of the most expensive parts of Manhattan. Not only is Manhattan expensive, but that's like the most expensive. He's right on Broadway, and I'm like, well, how? Wow. What's he doing? Because there's a lot of similarities in our business in the fitness part of what we do.
Okay.
In that they do personal training, and well, how does he hire coaches to drive in from somewhere else because they're not living in a $3.5 million condo in Manhattan? How does he handle his overhead of $250,000 a year or a month, something like that? It was just kind of mind-boggling to me. And he had a large facility as well. So I went and he was gracious enough to meet with me, and I brought Amir with me, and we were kind of expanding our offering in terms of services, and wanted to learn from someone that's been down that road before. So I started asking him all these questions, and not to discount his ability, but he didn't really have the answers, I don't think. But he stopped me and said, meaning I don't think he's the guy that runs the actual business. I think his brother does, if I recall correctly. But he stopped me and said, "You're not asking me what you should be asking me." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" He goes, "Let me see your Instagram account." He looked at my account, 400 followers, sees a video of me kite surfing, and he's like, "Well, this is interesting stuff. Like, you need to share more of this, but you need to do it every day. And the last time I'd posted anything was like a month and a half ago.
Mm-hmm.
It was just for my friends and family, right? And he's like, you have a white beard and you're moving like that. Like, I want to know what you're doing. I'm like, you really think anybody wants to? Like, I'd rather look at the sexy 26-year-old chick with the glute exercises and the bands on the beach in Santa Monica.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to look at Todd, Midwestern middle-aged guy. And he said, no, you do want to, because you stick out like a sore thumb, and you're not like that woman on the beach in that she is just saying, hey, I'm an online coach. Everybody's doing that. You actually have a facility. I'm like, I was kind of skeptical. I'm like, I'll try it. And so Amir and I immediately started trying it. We're making this trip through New Jersey because we wanted to meet with another facility as well. And I grew up in New Jersey, so I took him to my old neighborhood and everything. We're taking pictures and doing stories and stuff. For the first time I'd ever really focused on that. And it didn't, frankly, matter. But then I upped my game a little bit. We have a photographer that we've had for years that we have a relationship with. And so we scheduled our first photo shoot. And Don said, I'm like, well, what should I post? He goes, just post what you do. I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, if you have breakfast, post how much protein you're eating, or what you're eating. If you step on a scale, what's the scale that you're using? I mean, all the little details that I kind of take for granted. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. I can do that. So I started doing that. And how long ago was that, Jess? It was that was 2017, a year and a half ago. And I went from 400 followers to 36,500 followers. It's totally changed, but that's all it is. It's a bizarre thing to me. It's me literally sharing. This is the thing I do. Like me sharing the details about sleep hygiene. When we get to the sleep topic, which is scheduled for I think sometime in May, I believe. I'll post that. Like when I travel, I have electrical tape, and I stick electrical tape on all the little red dots in the hotel rooms. Things like that.
Wow.
To make sure that the dang hotel room is dark.
Right.
Like you got light coming through the blackout shades. You got light coming through under the door. You got the TV. You got the alarm clock. All this light pollution. Mm-hmm. And then you have sound. And you know what I do for that? That would be a second post. So that's really it.
One of the founders of the famous restaurant McDonald's, Ray Kroc, once said, "The quality of a leader is reflected in the standards they set for themselves." Though I do admit and understand the irony of quoting a founder of an iconic fast food restaurant on a podcast featuring a health and nutrition expert, there are similarities in their stories and understanding of their businesses and how to build them. In the early 1950s, Ray Kroc saw a better vision of what a hamburger restaurant might be. He was dissatisfied with the current market standard and once quoted, "In my experience, hamburger joints are nothing but jukeboxes, payphones, smoking rooms, and guys in leather jackets. I wouldn't take my wife to such a place, and you wouldn't take your wife either." Kroc was famous for implementing fast, clean, and friendly service after going into business with McDonald's brothers, and famously had an eagerness to push the business into new and uncharted territories. To reflect back to Todd, you can see a similar amount of forward thinking about what Stark and fitness gyms in general could and should be in the future. Todd's ability to understand the frustrations of his clients in the older model and how his all-encompassing approach to fitness would better serve a segment of the market has led to a remarkable amount of success in Stark's first decade as a company. And Todd's own personal work ethic with his own health and wellness undoubtedly models and pushes the way forward for both his employees and his clients. As Henry Kissinger once said, The task of the leader is to get their people from where they are to where they have not been. You seem like you've done a really thorough job of hiring the right type of people that fit with your overall goals and vision of the business. So when you're looking to bring someone into your team or into your inner circle, what type of traits or skills are you looking for in those type of people to bring on?
That's a great question. So for those of you listening that are running businesses or want to run a business, you don't hire anybody until you define what type of culture you want. And the culture is grossly determined by how people behave in a company. And the behavior is determined by an overlap in values and which values are rewarded and which values are the opposite. So simply determining what those things are, what those values are, and trying to find them in someone's work history or personal life is all we do. That's pretty much it. And so we have 4, and asking questions that usually start with the word why. Why did you do this? Or why did you like that? Or why did you react this way? In the interview process, for the purpose of unearthing those 4 core values, is really all it is.
Okay.
To the extent that we're successful with that, I would say that's well. First of all, I think I've hired 400 people in my career. I mean, It's just a lot of people. Have had much larger businesses, many more employees. My staff doesn't have that kind of experience. So right now, I'm teaching the management team how to interview effectively. They understand the culture intimately because they're a part of it, but they don't necessarily know how to identify that in strangers. And that's the next level.
Okay.
But for me, it's quite easy to do it because I've been doing it for so long.
You kind of touched on a little bit in some of your answers, but in the process of growing this business and of kind of transforming yourself as well, what have been some of the more difficult things in doing that? Some of the tougher steps that maybe, people see your Instagram account now and wow, look at all this great stuff. Mm-hmm. But what's been really kind of harder about it?
What's been the hardest part about my physical transformation?
I guess either one, physical or the growing of the business.
Oh, those are so many. We can start with the business.
Okay.
The biggest challenge was me, I think, and me just not knowing anything about what we should be, what our culture should be, what should differentiate us, not knowing what the problems were associated with the industry. And like I mentioned, Stark is a solution to all the problems that I have personally experienced in medicine and in fitness. Issues with the doctor's offices and one doctor not talking to a specialist, not collaborating on my behalf, just kind of passing the baton. That's the way the system really works. All of them kind of fighting for credibility, meaning disagreeing with themselves, but never talking to each other about it. And so I get like 3 or 4 messages if I've got 3 or 4 doctors that I'm dealing with on a particular issue, which is not an uncommon predicament for a consumer at my age to be in. Every doctor would say that you should exercise and eat well to be healthy. How to do that is left up to the consumer, and then they end up with the chick that's 26 years old on the beach in Santa Monica doing the band thing, and it's not working for the consumer. So there's all sorts of like half-baked answers that are provided to consumers except for pharmaceuticals, which is black and white, very clear. Take this pill 3 times a day. And then you're going to have all these other side effects, and you're going to not really be healthy, but the symptom is going to be taken care of. Right. It's a freaking mess. So not really having those problems, I needed to have my worldview shifted for Stark to develop, and that took time. And I didn't want it to take time. I wanted to go fast, but it's all new to me.
Sure.
My body was new to me, meaning I didn't have any awareness of my body. I thought it was normal to go to sleep with a headache every night. Wow. Because that was my thing. Mm-hmm. You might think it's normal to go to sleep with low back pain. But now I think, what did I do? What did I eat today that gave me a headache? Why do I have a headache? What mobility issues are leading to the headache?
Okay.
I look at my symptoms and I'm like, I did this to myself. I wonder what it is. Usually I know. At this point I know. Like if I had a couple slices if I had a sandwich with regular bread, within 10 minutes my pinkies will start to ache, and a couple hours later I'll start getting a headache.
Interesting.
Yeah, so I don't eat that sandwich with the bread. Or if I do, I'm like, well, is it worth the headache? Maybe it is. Yeah.
Some days it is, yeah.
Some days it is. Usually not, though.
Okay.
So that was it's kind of a 30,000 foot view of the challenges of Stark. It was really all me. I had to develop as an individual first before I was able to lead anybody anywhere. Right.
It's a great answer.
The physiological changes were not nearly as difficult. The reason they aren't for me is because my purpose was so intense. Meaning one of the most basic leadership tools I think anybody can employ is leading by example. It's the easiest thing ever. Like if you want to hire a sales force of great salespeople, be a great salesperson and show them how. If you really believe in the product that you're selling, you better be buying that product yourself, right? Mm-hmm. Like when I was in manufacturing, we manufactured carpet and rugs and custom rugs and imported rugs and stuff like that. So I had all of our stuff all over. I mean, the first house I ever bought in Orange County, I had like 6 different carpet products installed. It looked like a freaking patchwork quilt. But I just wanted to see this stuff and like, how is this going to, perform on my staircase? And how is this going to look in my living room? And when my son spills his Kool-Aid, is it going to clean up? I knew because I had our products all over our house. It would look terrible, but that's kind of that's leading by example. I expected everybody to do that in the company. At Stark, it's pretty much the same thing. My purpose is, I have to survive and take care of my family. That's a massive purpose as a father. And so I had to do everything almost perfectly because I wanted to know if the thing worked. Like if back when the paleo diet was so big and we were using that vernacular to kind of define what a particular approach to nutrition was, I was the perfect paleo solution guy. Mm-hmm. If somebody wanted me to meditate every day, and these were the reasons why I should do it theoretically, I didn't care that it was theoretical. I wanted to know if it actually worked, and I wanted the person that was teaching me or trying to get me to do something, whether it was a doctor or a chiropractor or a coach here or whomever, I wanted them to learn as well. I wanted us to know, and so taking those changes in bite-sized chunks and grasping onto them like no other human is willing to do, basically, it was because I love my children. It wasn't because like I wanted to show up at the beach in Huntington Beach kite surfing and have a 6-pack. A 2-pack was fine for me. A flat stomach was fine. The absence of headaches and low back pain, that's all like good enough for a 50-year-old that has a family. Those other things just kind of came with it accidentally, frankly. They came with it because of trying all those little tiny things like how to eat, how much to eat, lifestyle changes like meditation, and then the whole sleep hygiene thing, taking the right supplements for gut health. I have some heart issues, an AFib arrhythmia, which is a stress-related development that started in my early 30s. Managing that without going on pharmaceuticals is important to me because of the lack of side effects that, let's say, herbs have. Okay. All those little details have added up to years of Instagram posts that will happen that I can't get out quickly enough because there's just too many of them. They just got kind of accumulated, and as I tried doing one thing, like drinking lemon water in the morning to improve my liver health, that didn't work, so I'm not going to bother with that anymore. But meditating sure seems to work, so I'm going to hold on to that. So it was just years of trying these things, and our staff looking at me like, Todd will do this. Todd, try this thing. Try this supplement. This is disgusting. Drink this shake. It's gross. But do it every day for the next 60 days. Okay. That's pretty much, I'm the punch dummy of the company, or the crash dummy.
Sure.
Yeah, the guinea pig. That sounds better than crash dummy. But those things have added up to a super healthy body. And actually, my cognitive function is way better than it was when I was in my mid-30s, because I'm just really healthy. And back then, I was really unhealthy. Mm-hmm. If you've seen any of the before and after pictures on my Instagram account.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you look closely at my face, I looked tired and sick. And I felt that. I really did all the time. I was exhausted and had headaches all the time and achy. I felt like an old man. Mm-hmm. I remember picking my son up when I was 32 years old, and he would have been a year old at the time. A little bit less than a year, and standing next to his crib and holding him up against my chest. And he's, his kind of like little baby legs went, like a cowboy kind of around my belly. And as I was standing, he was sitting on my belly. And I recognized that for the first time. Wow, I have a belly. And I shrugged my shoulders and I'm getting old. I was 32. Looking back, I was like a little tiny baby. I wasn't even fully, functioning.
Right.
So, so my perception has completely changed in how I look at things like aging as a result.
What do you feel like is one of the best investments that you've made in your career?
That's a great question. Okay. The thing that comes to mind immediately is signing up for a business mastery course with Tony Robbins. Not for the things you're probably assuming right now. A friend of mine, his name's Shran Srivatsa. He's was the CEO of Telus Properties here in Orange County, which is a fairly large real estate brokerage firm. Amazing guy. He was a student at the time, and he's like, "Hey Todd, you want to go to this thing with me?" And he's a student, so I'm like, "Yeah, whatever they ask me, I just say yes usually." So I said, "Yeah, I'll go with you," and it seemed great. He's a really cool guy, just a wealth of knowledge, and I knew just by being with him, I would get a lot. So we flew out to Vegas together, went to this 3-day thing. And it was what you would expect and what you saw on TV, or if you watch the documentary, the experiences that people have. It was all of that stuff, which is nice and tiring, frankly. But this is where the real value came in. I was assigned a coach prior to the event, like 3 or 4 months prior to the event, like a business coach, and they wanted to sell coaching services to me. I didn't sign up for it, but I can't remember the guy's name. Anyway, he's a really sharp guy. I mean, I was very impressed. And he said, well, you get a couple of old coaching modules as well. And I didn't put any thought into it at all. I'm like, what do you think I should try? And he sends me this one package of a bunch of interviews of experts on various topics, which was pretty interesting. And he sent me this other thing called the RPM program. I don't even remember what RPM stands for.
Okay.
And the RPM program is a system by which to manage your life, not just your work, but your life. And it's, I don't know how, it's nearly impossible to implement as I think it's designed, but I designed a variation of that that's super powerful. So I've got like this Tony Robbins-ish way of looking at possibilities, which I think is important to learn from him, meaning there aren't really any limits. They're all just kind of self-imposed. Mm-hmm. And then I have a process by which I'm able to take whatever those goals are, let's say they're a year down the road, and put it into like what I have to do tomorrow on Friday at 10. Okay. And so that's probably the most, if I didn't sign up for the course, I wouldn't have gotten this they came in CDs.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's great. That's
great.
But
that was in 2014. That had a big impact on how I see how I use my time.
Of all the things that you do, when you finally put your head on the pillow at night and are heading to sleep, what of all these business, of everything that you have in place, brings you the most joy or meaning in your life?
I think there are two things that the business really give me because of the type of business that we're in. One is seeing us change and sometimes even save the lives of our students by virtue of pulling them out of being pre-diabetic or getting off a bunch of meds, and the other is which is much more common, which is enhancing their lives to a point where they're just absolutely mind blown, which could be changing the way they see themselves. That's a big deal because most people that come to us, generally they're not the most passionate people about Stark tend to be the students that think they're experts in fitness already. Oh, I know how to work out. I've been reading Muscle and Fitness for 20 years or whatever. And then they're just blown away that there's this whole another world of possibilities that they can attempt to implement. But the ones that get the biggest change are obviously the ones that come to us that have no experience in exercising at all, other than maybe going for a walk with their spouse or taking the dog for a walk or whatever. And we change how they see themselves. So they show up and their story is, I'm overweight, I'm old, I'll never change, I'll always be like this, my dad was like this is my genetic makeup. And then their doctor says, you have to do something about this, you have to exercise. And then if they find us and they want to lean on experts, because many very successful people have experts in all different parts of their lives. And so they attempt to do that with their fitness as well. And we change their story. We convince them that, oh, I can actually, I like Todd, not genetically gifted. My dad, you'd see my dad and you'd be like, yeah, typical Midwestern 75-year-old guy, kind of a mess, my height and almost my height width-wise.
Okay.
I love him, but he's not like a super healthy guy. And that would have been my future. But having them change their stories about themselves to the point where, like, wow, I'm 55 and I'm really fit. Like I'm the fittest person among my peers. I'm fitter than the people that are in their 30s in my office. And this a 30-year-old waitress just looked at me differently. I've never had that look before. And they all of a sudden their entire the way they see themselves as powerful as they actually were. Because their story's been changed because what they see in the mirror is different. So that's a super exciting one. And then secondarily, it's our staff and me being I'm much more intimately involved with our staff's development than any of our students, because I'm just a business person. The coaches are grossly responsible for those relationships, as I mentioned, but internally, I'm closely connected to the progress of everybody from a new intern to our VP of morale, Tyler Mounts.
Okay.
And I get a lot of emotional income from seeing them develop beyond what they ever thought was capable as well.
We want to thank Todd Vande Hei for coming on today and sharing all his thoughts about his business and his life and his transformation personally and professionally. We really do thank him for that. To find out more about Todd and Stark Fitness, visit starklife.us. That is the website for Stark. And you can follow Todd on Instagram at testodderone. TESTODDERONE on Instagram, and see all his fabulous tips on nutrition and health and life. Please follow along with our podcast. You can do that next time on iTunes, or you can sign up for our newsletter on dankrikorian.com. Thank you guys for making it to the end of it, and as always, whatever you're doing, wherever you are, keep making that beautiful work. We'll see you soon.